Stanley. Duke, Peter, Sam, and Sir Handel's time on the Ulster Railway was coming to an end. "We enjoyed having you three here," said the small controller. "We're very sad to see you heading back, but don't worry, your whole line is still going on. And all my engines are really proud to have run this line very well in your honor." Now, before you go and head back, I wanted to ask about an engine named Stanley. "Oh yes, Grandpa, you told us the story a lot about him." "Well, yes, Peter Sam," said Duke. "But how unfortunately, I had to admit I didn't tell the story fully about Stanley." The engines were all surprised, including Peter Sam and Sir Handel. "Really?" "Yes, really. And I think we should probably I tell you all the real story about Stanley's time here. We'll be expecting a new engine arriving in our railway in a few days' time, Duke. I bought him up cheap from the War Department, and he can be of a bit of reputation of a loose cannon, if you get my meaning." "I understand, sir, and don't worry, I'll do my best to help this new engine." Sure enough, the new engine arrived. It's a very unusual engine and looked a bit big, but despite that, he seemed to be in a grumpy or more boastful mood. "Do be careful around here. You're not in the war anymore, and don't need to be preposterous to others. Hey, you don't need to tell me how to run this line. I run through trenches and over bad track. I steam through mud, rain, and snow without a hitch. Now then, where are those darn trucks? Oh dear, he's not gonna last long. I could feel it in my frames." "You're right there, Duke," said the manager. "He's not meant to last long. He was only specifically built in the war. But when the war ended, he had to be disposed of. But I couldn't resist of disposing this very unusual engine, so I bought it up. And make sure I keep it in harm's way. I got a bad feeling things are gonna end up badly for him." By the look of him, definitely cheap shape, cheap price, cheap everything. Definitely worth a scrap," said Duke. Soon Stanley was soon put to work, but however he does have a fault. Because he hasn't been re-gauged properly, he began to sway left and right. He knew about it, but he didn't take notice. He would constantly derail at a section of the track, and would this causes confusion for some of his trains. For passenger runs it's not that much, but instead he could actually ordered about and being very rude to Duke, trying to teach him everything. The only thing he does say is that, "Hey, listen here, in the States, I don't really care who's in charge. I basically do what I was told." The manager was very frustrated with Stanley whenever he returned after having a slip up and derailed at a section of the track. The manager tried to examine him what's wrong with him, but he couldn't find anything wrong. He even took him to pieces to see something is wrong, but still, Stanley go in the same old way. And as usual, he doesn't even care about his mistakes. Always saying, "In the States, we don't care a dime for a few spills." "Sir, I can't take it of Stanley anymore. Whenever I told him that it's not the war anymore, he said the opposite. He said he can do it regardless if the war's over or not." Typical him. One day he will learn sense. "I could agree, Duke," said the manager. "I think it's better we better put him in the yards for a while, just to make sure." "Good idea, sir. I don't want him rolling about the rails." And so Stanley began working in the yards. Fortunately, his derailment had somehow stopped, and continued on for the next month. One day, he was very bored and he wanted to venture out. He saw some empty tankers in another siding and asked Duke, Who's supposed to take that train?" "No one, apparently, if you want to pull it." "Oh, definitely I'll pull it. I'll show you that I can be really useful out there. No derailment for the past month, and I can prove it." "Whatever you say," said Duke. Stanley backed down onto the tankers and set off. "I'll show that Duke that I am really useful regardless. And I don't even care about my mistakes, he ventured down the line. He began to pick up speed as they approached the sharp bends. Steady on, boy, said his driver. Don't need to be so rushed on it. Who cares? We should pick up speed, just to see that I can really withstand these curves without derailing. Then Stanley could see sheep on the line. His driver applied the brakes, but they were going too fast, and when they hit the next bend, it happened. The sheep cleared the track as Stanley derailed, with the truck scattered behind him in a complete mess. The sheep take no notice and continue to munch on the grass. A couple minutes later, Duke arrived with the breakdown train. He was not very pleased with Stanley. I warn you to be careful. Listen here, Duke. In the States, we don't care a dime for a few spills. Even in the war, I just pressed on without even noticing. What we do here, Duke continued, but all he did was laugh. But Stanley didn't laugh when the manager was very furious with him. We all learn mistakes, but for you, it's just completely the opposite. Whenever you have an accident, you just carry on as if nothing ever happened. What kind of attitude is like that? Well, you see, sir, enough. I cannot stand of it. You know what? Maybe I should make you something really useful, keeping that you are not really good on the rails. What are you planning to do exactly, sir? Well, I'm planning to take away your wheels and make you very useful at last. Stanley didn't stop laughing then, and you might guess what happened next. Afterwards, I knew that story of Stanley's time here to scare any new engines, particularly Peter Simons' Hondo. They already learned their lessons out of this, and I hope that you three new engines don't learn that way. We won't, said the three engines. That's good. And I'd like to say that it's an honor to have me, Peter Simons' Hondo, here to visit this railway. Please carry on our legacy, and for the foreseeable future. And all the engines whistled so loudly that the smoke controller had to leave to avoid getting his ears deaf.